Good morning, everyone. My name is Rabbi Lesser, Director of Pastoral Care here at Gurwin Jewish, and happy Purim to all of our residents and staff here at Gurwin Jewish. Today being Purim morning, we're going to have a special program where I will be saying the Purim story alongside with some of the readings of the Megillah itself. As we go through some of the readings, I'll give in details, some of the story behind it and involved. This way we'll all be able to experience the Megillah and the Purim story together. A little bit of background. As the Purim story begins with King Achashverosh and his palace having a feast for 6 months, a 6-month feast celebrating really the destruction of the temple. Because at this point in Jewish history, the first temple was destroyed and hope was being lost on the rebuilding of the second temple. And although as we know right now in history the second temple was rebuilt, but there was a time period when the Jews and non-Jews alike did not believe it would be rebuilt. And when King Achashverosh felt that the Jews had lost their chance to rebuild the temple and they would no longer rebuild it, he celebrated this with a party. In his party, he displayed some of the utensils from the temple, which was seen as a very, very big disgrace to God himself. So the story of Megillah Esther begins with the party of Achashverosh, as we read it inside right now. And at the end of the party, his queen Vashti, who refuses to come out to show herself to the public, Achashverosh kills her and then needs to look for another queen, which gives room for Esther to enter the picture. Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh, Achashverosh, Hamalech mihodu v'yarkosh, Sheva v'shimya medina, Bayamim ahem kusheves, Hamelech Achashverosh, Al kizeh machuso, Kasher b'shana b'ira, b'shna shalosh l'machos, O mishtel chol tzarav v'yavodav chel, Paras umadai, apartimim, V'sarei hamidinos lefana, Baroisa, V's'oshek o machuso, V'esik artveres gulasol yamim rabim, Shonim meyas yom umelos hayamim hay la'asa hamelech cholam nimseim b'shushan abirol migadol v'yarkator mishtar shivas yamim b'chatzar kinaz bizan hamelech ur karpas u'zechei l'zechut b'chaliv u'zyagamon azuli chasev emudei sheish v'tozav v'chasev v'espaz b'ayit v'sheish v'zar v'sor charaz v'ashgoz b'chlei zahav v'chelim mihilim shonim v'yein malchos rav giyad hamelech Hashiyagad azein oinez ki chinisad hamelech alko rav beisol azos gertonish v'yish gam vashti hamakos hamishtar noshem beis hamakos shel melech Achashverosh bayom hashvi ketov v'melech vayayin amal imhuman v'zochar v'nobik zovav v'zos ezer v'charkas Shivat Sarisim, Hamishar, Risim, Lefnei Melech Achashverosh, Lavi, Yes Vashti, Hamakol, Lefnei Melech Begezer, Machos, Laharos, Hamim, V'sarvim, Yes Yofyo, Kito Vasmei, Vatimein, Hamakol, Vashti, Lavo B'dvar, Melech, Asher B'yad Sarisim, V'yiksof, HaMelech Mior, V'chamasov, Arabo. Vayomer HaMelech, Chachamim Yodei, Haitim, Ki Chein Devar HaMelech, Livnei, Kodei Das, Vadin, Vakarov, V'elav, Karshina, Sheisad, Masar Sashish, Meses Marsana Mimuchan, Sheva, Asrei Parazu, Madai, Rei Pnei HaMelech, Yeshim Yishna B'malchos, Kadas Masot, Makov, Vashti, Alasher, Lorasa, Azamar HaMelech Achashverosh, B'yad Sarisim, Vayomer, Mimuchan, Livnei HaMelech, Vasrim, Lo Ala Melech, Levado, Avsa Vashti HaMalkah, Ki Akol HaSarim, Akol Amim, Asher, Chominos HaMelech Achashverosh, Ki Yitzei Devar HaMalkah, Kohan Hashim, Lehavazos, Va'alihem Beinehem, Bi'amra, HaMelech Achashverosh, Amar, Lavi Es Vashti, HaMalkah, Lefanov Loiva, Vayom Hazeh, Darmarna Saros, Paras Umadai, Asher Shemut V'Hamalkah, L'chosarei Melech Ra'uchadai, Bizon V'katzei, V'mal Melech Tov, V'yitzei V'Hamalchut Mofanov, V'katzei, B'sei Paras Umadai, Lo Yavor, Asher Lo Savo, Vashti. V'nei Melech Achashverosh, U'malchuso Yitein, HaMelech L'rusa, HaTova Mimena V'nishma, V'tzgam HaMelech Asher Yaseh, V'chol Malchuso Ki Rabai, V'chol hanashim v'nu yikar lev alihem limudov yad kartan v'yitav hadavar b'nei melech hasarim V'hayas HaMelech Kidvar Mimuchan V'yishlach Sfarim El Kol Minos HaMelech. And we know Kichos Vavel Amam Kilshano Liot Kol Ishtarei V'Veiso U'Medaber Kilshon Amo. So that's how the first chapter ends, with the killing of Vashti, Queen Vashti, for not listening to her husband, the king Achashverosh, and the concern that other people will follow her path and rebel against the king. The second chapter begins with the introduction of Mordechai, the great Jew, the tzaddik, and his daughter Esther, who is now going to be given over to be the queen of Achashverosh. Achad v'meilech yishoch Hamazem melech Achashverosh achaz v'shivas asher sasa v'ez asher nigzar aleh v'yemru narei melech mishar tzav yivakshu lemelech livnarot v'zos mareh v'bekeit hamelech b'kideh uminos malchuso v'gvisu eskol nara b'sula toivas mareh shana biro beis anashim al yadgei Saris hamelech shomer anashim nasom tamru kehem v'hanara asher zavinei hamelech Timloch Dagas Vashti, Vaytava Rabbanei HaMelech Vayaskein. Ish Yehudi Yabashon Abiro Shmo Mordechai Ben Yair Ben Shemi Mekish Shemini Asher Gulam Yerushalayim Im Hagulam Asher Glosom Im Yachina Melech Yudah Asher Glon Mukhaneta Melech Bavel Vayi Omein Hadasa He Esther Bastor Dokin La Veim Hanura Yafastor V'Dos Marev V'Mos of Yavima L'cha Mordechai lo levas vayi bisham advar melech v'daso b'kavei rosh rabos hashana b'ro yad hagai v'tilchach Esther beis hamelech yad hagai shomer hanashim v'aditov hana beinav v'yizachased lefanav yivel Esther mukeh aves menaisel seisla v'shev hanaros ha'yurios seislam beis hamelech v'yishanas narasel l'tov beis hanashim Lo yes, I'm obvious Moladaki, Mordechai, Zvol Asher Lo Sagid, Choyom Vayom, Mordechai Meslim Nechotzer Beis Ham Nashim, Ladas, Shlom Esther Maya Sebo, Uvahagi Yator, Naro, Naro, Lavol Melech Ashverosh, Mikei, His Logid As Nashim, Shnei Bezar, Chodesh Ki, Kedim Uli Meimru, Kem, Shishak Hashim, Shavon Amor, Shishak Hashim, Bibisamim, Bazim Umisarmukei Hanashim Uvazeh and Rabbi HaMelech Chasher Toima Yinasein Lalavoima Beis Hanashim Ad Beis HaMelech Bayam Yemehei Mordechai Yoshe B'Shar HaMelech Hatzah B'Kson Vaseresh Neisar HaMelech Misham Reyasav Vayivakshu L'Shlosh HaMelech Ashverosh Vayived HaDavar Mordechai V'gid Li Esther Makav Ator Mir Esther HaMelech B'Shem Mordechai V'Vakasha Davav Vayimatzei Vayilush Nema Le'es V'Yikasei B'Sefer Devrei Hayamim L'Fnei HaMelech. The second chapter ends with Mordechai unfoiling a plot against the king Achashverosh, which later on in the story is key to the salvation of the Jewish people. It was Mordechai, by saving the king, gets a special reward from the king later in the story. The third chapter begins with the ascent of the terrible evil man Haman, Harasha, the evil Haman, who, this is many years later, but gets a high position in the king's palace and bribes the king Achashverosh to wipe out the Jewish nation. We have a custom, whenever we say the name Haman, we bang on the table, we make noise to eradicate this wicked person. Achar hadvarim hay lagida al hamelech Achashverosh es Haman ben Amidas hagagi v'nisayu v'yosef es kiso mi'akoser m'sher ito cholav dei hamelech asher b'shar hamelech harim mishachavim lahaman kinti v'lo hamelech u'mordechai lo yichrav lo yishtachaveh v'yomru avdei hamelech asher b'shar hamelech l'mordechai madu hatover Eis mitzvahs hamelech vayi ki amram ilav yom v'yom lo shama lihem v'yagidu lehaman L'rosi amdu v'dvei Mordechai ki yagid lahem asher hu Yehudi v'yar Haman ki Mordechai koreh mishachav v'lo v'yimlei Haman chema v'yivad beinav l'shol Mordechai levado ki yagid lo asa Mordechai v'vikesh Haman Liashmid et kol Yehudim asher b'chol malchut beis Achashverosh am Mordechai B'chodesh rishonu chodesh Nisan b'shana shnei matzah l'melech Achashverosh hipil pur hu hagara lifnei Haman miyom liyom chodesh chodesh shnei matzah hu chodesh Adar. So in Haman's wicked ways to destroy the Jewish people, especially when Mordechai, the tzaddik, did not bow down to him, he makes a lottery. A lottery in Hebrew is called Pur, which is why the name of the holiday is called Purim. Haman makes his lottery to choose which day of the year should I kill the Jewish people, and he picks the 14th of Adar, the Hebrew month of Adar, which is the day we are today, right now. So many years ago, Haman picked this day to be a day of the annihilation of the Jewish people, but as we know, Haman's plan was later foiled in the story. We'll continue with the next chapter when things slowly start to fall apart for Haman. As Haman is so angry at Mordechai, he does not want to wait until the 14th of Adar. He wants to kill the Jewish people today, specifically Mordechai. He builds a gallows 50 cubits high to hang Mordechai, and he goes into the king Achashverosh's palace to ask Achashverosh for special permission to kill Mordechai earlier than the rest of the Jewish people. Yet at that very moment that he was going to ask Achashverosh to kill Mordechai, Achashverosh remembered that Mordechai did a great deed for him and saved his life from the plan of two conspirators, as you mentioned a few moments ago. So clearly this is not a moment to ask for the death of Mordechai. And the opposite, the king Achashverosh tells Haman he has to reward Mordechai by leading him in the streets on top of the king's horse. V'alaylahu nadash nasa melech vayomer lavi yasefer zirchanos v'ayamim v'yinukim v'nei hamelech v'yimatzei kotsuv asher higid Mordechai abig son of Esther shnei tzusei hamelech mishamrei hasav asher bikshu l'shloach hamelech Achashverosh vayomer hamelech ma naseh v'yikar gdula l'Mordechai al zeh vayomru narei hamelech mishar tzov lo naseh imo davar vayomer hamelech mi bechatzer v'haman ba lechatzer beis hamelech haritzonah Lema lemelech, so says Mordechai haleis asher heichin lo vayomru narei hamelech elav hinei Haman omeinu b'chatzer v'yomer hamelech yavo vayavo Haman vayomer lo hamelech ma lasos b'isher hamelech haved b'ikaro vayomer Haman b'libo l'mi echbatz hamelech zos yikar yoser mimeni vayomer Haman el hamelech ish hamelech haved b'ikaro yaviu levush malchus levaz bo melech v'sus asher rechav olav hamelech shenitam b'keser malchus b'rosho. So now you can imagine Haman's level of disappointment. He came to hang Mordechai and was told by Achashverosh that you, Haman, have to lead Mordechai on a king's horse and tell everyone how great this person is. And the story continues, and Haman's day gets worse and worse because he's invited to a special party with just the king's presence and Esther's presence. Now Esther, understanding that as queen of Persia, she has a special role and has a lot of influence over the king Achashverosh. And Achashverosh does not know yet that she's a Jew. So this is the moment in history where Esther reveals herself to Achashverosh as a Jew and accuses Haman, the wicked, of trying to destroy her people. You can imagine Achashverosh's anger at Haman, as he obviously does not want his wife and his wife's country and nation to be destroyed. Vayavo hamelech v'Haman l'shtosim Esther hamalka vayomer hamelech Esther gam v'yomer sheni b'mishtei hayayin mashil esech Esther hamalka v'yishasin loch u'malach ashasech ha'ziyah malchus v'seyosh v'atan Esther hamalka v'tomer imatzotzi chen beinecha hamelech v'imamel melech tov tinasin li nafshi b'shelasi v'ami v'akashasi kinu v'karnu ani v'yami lashmid la'rogu li'abed v'i lulav adim l'shvachozim karnu acharashi ki ein chatzer shoyver b'nezek hamelech. Who is this person? Who is this person who's trying to kill your people? Esther, and Esther says, it's an evil, wicked man, Haman hara, the evil Haman. Haman was embarrassed. He was so embarrassed And King Achashverosh says, if you're going to do this to my queen's people, you're going to be hung yourself. And they take out Haman, and they hang Haman on the same gallows which he prepared for Mordechai. And after this happens, a war is waged between the Jewish people and the people of Persia, who don't like the Jewish people, want to destroy them, and a miracle happens and the Jewish people win the war. And part of the casualties of the war are the 10 sons of Haman, the 10 children of Haman, who were just as wicked as their father, and they're hung up in the city of Shushan. One of the interesting things we do in the reading the Megillah, when we get to this point of the story, is when we mention the 10 sons of Haman, we read them all in one breath to show that they're all just as evil and wicked as each other. Ubeshushan habira hagu hayudim v'abed chamesh b'yosi shes pershadas v'yes dalvam neses bazi v'es paras v'es adlai v'es aridas v'es mishos v'es arisa v'es arida v'es aseres b'nei Haman, the 10 children of Haman. So hayudim hagu, they killed them. And this is the day that the Jewish people decided, La'ihudim haisa or v'simcha v'sason v'ikar, there was light on the nation. We believed in God, we prayed to God, we fasted to God, and He answered our prayers and gave the salvation for the Jewish people. The Megillah concludes with the rabbis instituting this should be a day of happiness, a joyful day, giving gifts and presents to others. And for every generation in the future, we should remember this day of Purim as a day that God watched over us and He saved us. Al-Kain Karu Layamim Ha'ela Purim. We call this day Purim. Al-Shem HaPur, because of the lottery that Haman made against the Jewish people, and it was turned around, and he was killed instead of the Jewish people. Okay, and Kodevrei Agiyaris Hazos Maru Kocha Magia Alehem Kimu V'Kibla Yudim Alehem Ya'azaram V'Chonavim Alehem Lo Yavo Liososi Mishneim Eila Kizam Chizman Choshana V'Shana V'Yamim Eila Nizkarim V'Naasim Chodor V'Ador Mishbecha Medina Mina V'Ir V'Meim HaPurim Eila Lo Yavrum V'Docha Yudim V'Zachom Lo Yosef Mizaram Vadikasevas Jamaga Pasavichayel Mordechai Yudiyas Kol Tokev Likayem Esiger as a Rimazos Hashenes Ki Mordechai HaYehudi Mishnela Melech Ashverosh V'Gadol HaYudim V'Rtul Ravacha V'Shov V'Yama V'Daver Shalom L'Chol Zaro. And the Jewish people were saved by Yehudim. Haisa Ora, for the Jews there was light, V'Simcha, and happiness, V'Sason, and splendor, V'Ikar, and glory. I hope everyone has a wonderful Purim, and with God's help, we'll all be able to celebrate together in the new temple, the building of the third temple. It should come speedily in our lifetime.